the stuff that I'm going to present. And then between 10 and 15 minutes, we're actually going to slow ourselves right down and start to focus and do some practical stuff. So in terms of gaining clarity, that's what this session is about. It's the second in a series of 3. And at the end of it, what I would like everybody to have clear in their own head and from an understanding point of view is that you have clarity about what to do when you get hit by more things than you can handle at a particular given point in time. First thing I want to do though is often when we're looking for clarity, we end up with, in fact, getting caught up in our physical environment with junk. Now, by junk, I mean space junk. And the space junk that's out there tends to be in all different shapes and sizes. And one of the things that junk does, it actually makes our environment unsafe. And if something's untidy, it's not just unsafe for our, some of the rooms and some of the offices and some of the places that I've had over the years, physically have just been plain ordinary dangerous, all right? Now, that's a rarity, because most of us, if we fall over things often enough, tend to push stuff out of the way and move it. But there are other things. There are emotional things or spiritual things, financial things or mindset things that get in our way. And they're weird how they show up. For example, I used to have a photograph of my grandmother that I took everywhere. She was 92 at the time. And it was a photograph of extreme sadness because it was taken after she'd retired from work at the young old age of 90, because she had to return to work because one of her sons had stolen her pension. And so she, every time I looked at that photo, I was reminded of her story, which in that case was not pleasant. There was nothing nice about it. And because there was nothing nice about her story, it was something that for me emotionally and mentally was sad. And the sadness, I schlepped that around with me for nearly 10 years. And it was only after that time when I let it go, and I actually put it into a different space in my house. I actually put that photograph where it no longer was in my safe place, the place that I wanted to be, which at that stage was my office. And so I want you to look around the space, or think about the space if you're not in it right now, that you live, work, enjoy most. It could be anything from your bedroom to your lounge room to whatever. It doesn't matter what the space is, but I want you to look around it and say, okay, what in there do I need to get rid of so that my physical environment is supportive of my emotional well-being and my mindset. So have a little look around you before we drive off into anchoring yourself into the space. Have a think across things, have a look at memories, have a look at history, things that might impact on you financially, things that might do all sorts of weird stuff, and simply make a note for yourself to remove it. Now, yesterday's anchor that we set, so yesterday we set an anchor, and we set the anchor deep within ourselves in our meditation. And that anchor was important because anytime we start movement scientifically, if we have an anchor attached to the movement's going to be rotary in nature. In other words, we're going to go round in a circle. And the length of the anchor chain is going to determine the speed at which we travel. The length of the anchor chain is going to determine the distance we travel, and it's also going to determine the direction that we travel. And we need to have this anchor placed firmly, both within ourselves, and it needs to anchor us into Right. So the anchor is the essential or the foundational part of this whole process. So the essentials of today: focus on the anchor, and we'll do this in our meditation, the direction we're going to travel, and the distance or length of the chain. We can't pivot or change dramatically in the circumstances we're in right now without having those three things in there. So we're going to work on that as part of the meditation process that we do today. Now, we know that according to Newton's first law, it's going to take a lot more effort to actually get started than it is to keep moving. Now, Michael knows that from gymnastics, Sadiq knows that from flying, as does Al, and so you're all pretty clear on what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Newton's first law of motion. Once we're moving, that's when we come up against space junk. Now, I couldn't find the image, but there's a beautiful image out there at the moment with all these pieces of coronavirus floating over a crowd in a street, and it is literally all this stuff that you can just see people passing under it, passing through it, and the virus is supposed to be dropping down on top of them. Of course, that's not quite how it really happens in reality, but it emphasizes the junk that gets in the way, and corona is very much like that. Now, whether you like it or not, corona actually gets into every pore of your body, mind, and spirit, simply because it's all over the news. And if you decide not to listen to the news, then the next thing that happens is your friends and family ring up and saying, "Are you safe? Are you okay? Are you good at your end?" And once you've got that under control, then you've got family and friends jumping on social media and commenting, "Oh my God, did you see this? Did you see that?" When that's out of control, sorted out, your employer, if you're working for somebody, tells you either don't come to work, they don't need you anymore, or work from home if you can. Even schools and people who have kids know the impact of schools closing their doors, and suddenly you've got a house full of kids when you're trying to work. And so it gets pretty full on when you're looking at all these things that just constantly bombard you with junk. And every time you go to focus, there's junk is the first thing you see. And this junk, we need to simply notice and let go. Buddha puts it this way: it's when we have darkness, and we'll, for the sake of color, we'll use the term darkness. When we have darkness, Buddha suggests we should focus on the light. Now, every religion has something similar. I'm just not aware of all of them. I know a couple of you would be really good at quoting the similar statement from your own religious upbringing. They're all out there. And in terms of practical help, there's a great little quote out there from Buddha that says, some things you don't understand, they're not there to be understood, simply accepted. And meditation practices are simply there to focus on the subconscious process of breathing itself. Interestingly, in terms of our direction, where we send our attention, we send our energy. And this little image is fantastic because you can see that this little girl is focused directly on one thing. And the direction of our attention determines where our energy goes in relation to it. Now, here's the interesting thing. Michael and I both teach children, or have done for a long period of time. And one interesting thing about teaching kids is this: if you don't actually teach them to look into the void rather than at the object or the space junk, what happens is this: they run into each other or the object. It's totally insane. I mean, why would a kid do that? Smash its face in? What I'd like you to do is actually this. I'd like you to just stand up where you are, and we're going to do a little test here or a little exercise rather, to see your personal vision. So I want you to stand up and stare straight out in front of you. So just jump up off your seat and stare straight out in front of you. Now, while you're doing that, what I want you to do is I want you to, without moving your head, notice how far you can look to the left and what you can see there without moving your head. Cool. What about to the right? What can you see to the right without moving your head? Because left to right, we have 180-degree vision. However, and this is weird, for some reason, when we go vertically, our field of vision is limited. Hop back on your seats again. And on the vertically, here's a strange thing. If we're balancing, if you look down and you're balancing on one leg, it's relatively easy to do. If you look up when you're balancing, you tend to fall over. You tend to wobble. Weird, but true. And you gymnasts, you can stop showing off. All right, so what we're trying to do, and why it's weird is this, that from an evolutionary perspective, where does most of the things come from, or where do most of the things come from, which are going to kill us? Evolutionary-wise, they're probably going to come from the left and the right, and they're also going to come from the ground, and they're also going to come from above. And yet we're only covering two sides. The distance or the time frame of our vision is important because it determines the speed. No, sorry, our speed's determined by the distance from our anchor. And in our meditation today, we're going to start to look very simply at the distance we choose to move from our anchor. Because initially, when things are really chaotic and bizarre, we tend to look at the here and now. Now that's important. The right here, the right now. That's during the learning phase. As we get better at it, we tend to be able to look further ahead. Take a young person, 15 or 16-year-old, they're not interested in looking 10 years down the track. Parents tend to be much more interested than them about where they are looking. And over time, our tomorrow is going to become next week, next month, next year. What we're going to do right now is we're going to step into the eye of the storm. And so what I'd like you to do is find a place where you can be dead still, whatever that means. For some of you, that'll be lying on the floor. For some of you, that'll be sitting. For some of you, that'll be sitting on the floor. For some of you, that'll be pushing back in your chair. Some of you will put a pillow under your head. It doesn't matter. But for the next 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to be dead still, no movement. And for those who've joined us today for the first time, this is something we started with yesterday in terms of simply saying, stop, be still. So you've got your place where you're still. And in that stillness, I just want you to imagine for a moment that you are looking straight into the eye that is on this screen here. So you're seeing an eye and you're looking into it, and it is called the eye of the storm. And in the eye of the storm, I want you to gently let your eyes drift closed. And from now on, no movement. So you need to wriggle, wriggle. If you need to scratch, scratch. Because you're now going to be dead still for the next 10 to 15 minutes. Totally still, totally relaxed, and easily able to focus. Now, we're not going to look horizontally. And as you lie or relax and become dead still, I'd like you to take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in, I want you to look at the place we arrived at yesterday, where right in the core of our being, we placed an anchor. For those who are joining us for the first time, I want you to look deep within inside you. In other words, follow the breath inwards, because right at the base of the breath, just before you start breathing out again, is the anchor that we put in place yesterday. And now from that anchor point, I want you to notice the length of the chain that you're going to use, that you're attached to. And I want you to notice the distance that you're going to travel and the direction that you're going to travel. So draw in the breath, look at the anchor, hold fast to the chain. Don't let it go, hold it fast. And now you have the honor to choose exactly the distance, direction, and focus. You're responsible for the clarity you find in your own physical space. It is yours to choose. Now, as we do this, and we breathe in deeply and breathe out slowly. Breathe in deeply. Focus on the anchor. With your eyes closed, I want you to allow your eyes to drift around behind closed eyelids and notice the junk, the things that want to get in your way right now, the things that want to stop you from moving forwards, the thoughts that your brain is throwing up to disrupt the process. Simply notice. Be aware. Notice the junk and let it float past. The reason that I've called it space junk is because it is junk that is occupying your space, the space that you're going to fill. And for the moment, it wants to impose itself on you. And as you simply notice and let it go, I want you to say with me on your breath, first of all, as you breathe in, say the word let, and as you breathe out, go. And allow yourself to sink in towards the center, where your anchor is. Breathe in and out. Let go. And notice as you settle in close proximity to your anchor, that the direction you are looking is upwards. Breathing deeply and slowly, drawing the air all the way in, feeling your diaphragm rise, your stomach rise, holding for a moment, and then slowly breathing out. And as you set your focus upwards, notice that the space into which you are looking in the distance is clear of space junk, because you are in the eye of the storm. You're firmly anchored in the eye. And the space junk can actually pass around you. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to mute myself also, and I'm going to leave you in this place of absolute stillness. And you're just going to breathe deeply and slowly for a period of time. Concentrate only on your breath and know that you're lying right beside the anchor, that you're holding the anchor, and that your eyes are turned upwards into clarity. And as you look in the distance, you know that that's your place of safety. That's the physical place which you are looking to arrive in. What I would like you to do is come back into the space that we're occupying. Move your fingers, move your toes. Open and close your eyes. Push your fingers and your hands wide open. Turn your ankles gently. And when you're ready, sit up and come back into view. I'm going to unmute you one at a time. We're just going to quickly recap first of all, what it felt like, and secondly, what you've noticed. Bo, Michael, was it easy enough for you to fall back into your place with the anchor?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so
Yeah.
what I just want to say with that is that for some people that takes a long time. Now, you've worked with me for a little bit, and you understand that it's safe to go there. All right, you don't have any hang-ups around it. Right, and that makes it very easy to fall into quite a deep place of meditation. So, Dick, how did you go with that process?
Hello, yes.
Sorry, come again? How did you go with the process?
Hello, yeah. I can hear you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got you.
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah. So how did you find the process?
At one moment, like for like a minute or so, I felt like I was in complete stillness, but then some thoughts started, coming to my mind, and I started thinking about that, and I was in another another
Stop right there.
storyline or something like that.
Yeah, no, stop right there for a second. Stop beating yourself up.
Yeah.
Enjoy the fact for about a minute or so, you landed in a place that was interesting for you. All right? Because this is what this is
As
about.
soon as you stopped talking at that moment,
Yep.
I felt like I was in complete stillness.
Perfect.
Yeah. But
You're a lucky man.
Yeah.
All right, and don't beat yourself up and say, oh, thoughts came in, or I had to scratch my ear. No. The process here is very, very important, because the mastery that we're going to try and gain tomorrow is about the emotions that get in the way here. And it's very, very easy to bring up the negative. So when I say this to you, I can guarantee you almost everybody else in the room right now would say something similar if I had have asked them that question. All right? Because the first thing our brain wants to do is jump straight back into what we consider normal, which is negative, and say, oh, I wasn't good enough. Well, yeah, you were. You were very good at it. Right? And that's really, really important.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to mute you up, Sadiq, 1 second. Al, whoops, you should be unmuted. Whoops, oh no, wait on, sorry. Now you're unmuted, I beg your pardon. Sorry.
Yeah.
Now, you didn't participate yesterday. However, you and I have done similar types of things before. How easy did you find it was to drop in to the eye of the storm?
Picturing it, of course, was easy, but to drop there and to, be in that calmness or stillness was a bit of a struggle for brief moments. And it kept, like, if I would say, was I in that state? Yeah, I would say for nanoseconds, sometimes maybe for a couple of seconds. It happened frequently, but I couldn't stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, at some point, maybe because of the too much oxygen that I was consuming or inhaling, I kind of felt high or lightheaded. I don't know. It was a kind of a weird feeling.
Okay, no, it is what it is. I just want to say specifically to you, Sadiq, notice the terminology that Al just used.
Yeah.
He wanted to jump straight into the negative. He wanted to say, oh, was I there? Well, no, I really wasn't. Well, yes, he really was. Right? This is not a perfect art. And the reason it's not a perfect art is because we're jumping outside of the norm. All right? we're working on this from a totally different perspective. This is not a science. All right? This doesn't have direct rules around it, and yet it conforms with every scientific rule out there. All right? So both of you guys, stop beating yourself up. Right? If you want somebody to beat you up, I always say, let me do it. I am far, far better at it than you ever will be. I have had years and years of experience. All right. Bo, are you out of the wind? Let's hear.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, much better.
There was a bit of stuff going today, which was fine, but a bit more distracted. So it took a bit longer to get into that place, and I wasn't there very long, but I definitely noticed when I was. There was like an internal shift to the modality. Like everything was dark and there was a lot of distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything got, even though my eyes were closed, it was like the darkness was lighter, and
Mm-hmm.
the feelings in my body was lighter, and there was just less thoughts. It was still.
Can I just ask, what's your physical space that you're in right now? Because I can't see your video.
The rain.
Okay. So
No, I was
you've
on
got,
the beach. But
yeah, see, so you're in a place right now where it's not your safe space, right?
yeah,
You know,
correct.
you and I have created your safe space already. And for the rest of you who don't know, Bo's a client of mine. So, you know, we work on a fortnightly basis. And I can tell straight away that Bo is not in his safe space. And because he's not in his safe space, some of these outside things are coming in to jump in and hassle him. All right, so just be aware of that it is not a perfect science. It is what it is. Now, tomorrow, I actually want to work quite deeply with everybody on emotions and feelings. All right, and the emotions stuff is so important because it allows you to have a gateway or a step into the absolute control of the one thing that wants to distract you all the time, and it distracts you from everything to your work or job, to relationships, to how you feel about yourself. And in coaching terms, emotional intelligence is a whole field that they've developed only in the last couple of years. So today, I trust that you've got a little bit of clarity. I trust that you saw the impact of focus and how distance and direction can make a big impact on us once we have our anchor in place, and the anchor is within ourselves. If you don't anchor within yourself, then whatever you're attached to, in fact, has the risk of falling apart on you. And that is the danger. That's why I teach people to anchor within themselves, why I'm such a big proponent of making sure that you lock in to the one thing that nobody can impact on, and that's you. I can't steal Al's sanity. He can allow it to go, but I can't steal it. I can't touch Sadiq's relational awareness if he doesn't allow me to, right? I can't help work with Bo's anxiety or with Michael's business unless they invite me into the space as a mentor. Just quickly before we go, I'm going to, whoops, where are we? I've got to go to the top here. I've got different buttons I'm trying to get used to. Sorry about that. Okay, I've unmuted everybody. I'll go left to right. Sadiq, you're on the left-hand side of my screen, so you get to go first.
Okay.
Tell me, what's the most valuable thing that you will take away from today's session?
Just the feeling of being completely still and completely without any thought of anything coming to your mind.
Cool.
Something like really peaceful, something like that.
Okay, cool. Al, what's the big takeaway for you?
Well, it's a new thing from you, which is the anchor, finding and realizing what or where your anchor is, and hold into it.
Okay.
I've never heard one before, but the idea is interesting, and what my body was trying to do is also interesting. I have to read more, or maybe practice more. But you and I will talk a lot more about that, because I think it will be an interesting thing.
Okay. There's a pathway that waits for you, and it's up to you to take the first step. I can't take the step. You have to take the steps. And I would love to work with you further, because I think you've got interesting places to go that you haven't even considered as places to go at this stage, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Bo, what was your big takeaway from today? Sorry, I'm trying to mute you. Whoops, now I'm just about to mute you up again. Wait on. There, you're unmuted. Right.
So, that even though it only lasted a moment, the place was very powerful. So that anchor that, I can go back there, and as you said, it's, rather than focus on how long I wasn't there, it's just to focus on, how much I was there when I was.
Yeah, cool. And there's other people on this call who really needed you to say that. So thank you. Thank you so much. All right, place. It's all about emotional mastery. And in that, you need to stand on your own 2 feet, which is fantastic. Big step, but an important one. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being part of your Pivot program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.